Imagine a world in the World Cup that has almost every nation winning every World Cup, as in nations winning the World Cup at least once. Many countries have had the thrill of winning a World Cup. France, the champions, head to 2022 Qatar. Germany with their 4 titles. Italy with their 4 titles. Even Uruguay winning the World Cup in 1930 and 1950 when people did not expect them to win. And yes, of course, you got to talk about England and even Argentina winning the World Cup. But there's one country above all that proves that you can keep yourself busy with winning titles. It's the 5-time World Cup champions, Brazil. And this is a video about talking about Brazil's 5 titles. Can you dig it, sucker? It's plain as day can see. You got very good World Cup countries like Italy, Germany, and even Argentina. But Brazil has proven themselves big. Soccer is a big religion in Brazil. Not trying to be sacrilege, I'm just trying to be factual. But the fact of the matter is that Brazil went through a metamorphosis of such, winning 5 championships. It's not that easy in the world. Brazil even got to keep a trophy. You don't believe me? Well, I'm going to tell you all about the secrets of Brazil's run. Now, do note, I'm going to talk about Brazil's run in the 5 World Cup finals. I'm not going to review all the World Cup as in for other teams. I'm just going to talk about Brazil because obviously I want to keep this as short as possible. So hang tight. So our journey begins with Brazil at the World Cup in Sweden in 1958. Now, before 1958, Brazil was not really a superstar team. They had tried. 1938, they were close to getting to the final, but their star striker, Leondas, got hurt. Some say the coach was resting him for the final, which actually was a bad move. But regardless, Brazil in 1950 had a golden chance to win the World Cup on home turf in Brazil in front of over 190,000 fans at the Maracanã. But the World Cup was a round-robin play. The 4 group winners would meet in a round-robin competition. Brazil needed just a tie against Uruguay, and they choked a 1-0 lead. Brazil went into mourning. Many people killed themselves, allegedly. But yeah, it was just terrible at the Maracanã. But as is, Brazil would change things up. They would actually change their uniforms to the yellow and blue that we all know and adore today. But they exiled the GOATs of the 1950 World Cup. One of them had to live on an island for a while. But still, it's 1958. Sweden's hosting the World Cup, which is weird how Sweden would get it, and it's in a northern country. Brazil was placed in Group 4 with the Soviets, British, and Austrians. So it was huge. Well, Brazil, thanks to their 2 wins and a draw, took care of things and won the group. The Soviet Union beat England in a 1-game playoff because both had the same goal differential. Now, in 1958, they didn't go by wins. If they went by wins, then the Soviets would have snuck past England anyhow. So England, with 3 ties, suffered gratefully. And that was the last time England failed to make it out of the group stage in a World Cup they qualified for. Mind you, they did miss a few World Cups past 58 till 2014. So yeah, Brazil and England played 0-0 tie, the first ever. In the knockout stages, Brazil would face Wales, who were making a massive run. It was huge seeing the 4 home nations, Wales, Northern Ireland, England, and Scotland, all qualified for the World Cup, with only Wales and Northern Ireland qualifying. Northern Ireland got the snot beaten out of them by the French, but the Brazilians won only 1-0, and the young 17-year-old Pele, put it in the net to beat the Welsh 1-0 in Gothenburg. In the semis at Solna, they took on France with their main guy, Jules Fontaine, who was looking to score goals at will. Fontaine did score a goal. However, Brazil would score 5. Vava and Didi both put in a goal, but it was Pele's time. He outmastered Jules Fontaine, putting up a hat-trick of his own. In the 52nd, 64th, and 75th minute, he scored. Fontaine would score 4 goals in the third-place playoff to get to 13, which is still a record to this day for one World Cup. Brazil would take on the host Swedes, and Sweden was looking for a title in Solna in front of 49,000 people. They felt happy as Niels Lidholm, one of the best strikers around for Sweden, scored to make it 1-0. However, Vava put up a pair of goals to make it 2-1, and then Pele's magical goal in the 55th minute with the half volley in the net, 3-1 Brazil. Brazil would score a goal by Mario Zagallo, who would later on go on to be the coach of the 1970 Brazilian champions, make it 4-1. Sweden scored kind of a consolation goal to make it 4-2, but Pele in the final few seconds made it 5-2. Game over, Brazil wins. Pele put up 6 goals in the World Cup. Vava put up 5. So the Brazilians looked very good and all that. It was amazing and all that. In fact, the 58 World Cup was depicted in the 2016 American film Pele, Birth of a Legend, about Pele's first World Cup tournament. So that was 1 down, 4 more to go. All right, so after one World Cup, the next World Cup, the 62 World Cup, was in Chile. So Brazil must have felt good about themselves being in South America. It's in their continent and all that. Still with 16 teams and all that, just like 58. Brazil was looking to do what they could do and do what only Italy did in history, and that goes to the World Cup. It went back to back. Brazil was placed in Group 3 with the Czechs, Mexicans, and Spaniards. And Brazil did it again. They scored 2 goals, 2 wins with a tie. Unfortunately, Pele would suffer an injury in the second game of the tournament against the Czechs and would basically be a non-factor. So Brazil had lost their star. The question on everyone's lips would be, how would Brazil do without him? So Brazil and the Czechs qualified from their group. In the knockout stages quarterfinals, Brazil in the third quarterfinal took on England, the team that tied them 0-0 last time, in Fina de Mar in front of 17,000 fans. Brazil used Garrincha's 2 goals to beat England. A goal by Hitchens, England scored, and then Vava scored, making it 3-1. So Garrincha was also a good striker too. And Garrincha and Pele, when they both were on the same team at the same time, Brazil never lost. In the second semifinal on June 13th, 1962, in Santiago, Chile, in front of 76,000 people, Brazil would face the hosts. And unfortunately for the hosts, they were outclassed. Garrincha scored 2 goals before Chile could try to equalize. So Garrincha made it 2-0. Chile made it 2-1, but Vava put up first of his 2 goals in the 47th minute to make it 3-1. Chile scored a penalty, but then Vava did it again, 4-2. So Vava stepped in to Pele's absence. So did Garrincha. Good news for the host Chileans is that they beat Yugoslavia 1-0 to get their place. Brazil would face the Czechs, who they faced in the group stages, and actually tied 0-0. It was going to be that type of game. So June 17, 1962, in front of 68,000 fans at the Estadio Nacional in Santiago, Chile, Brazil felt good. Unfortunately, in the 15th minute, Massive Post scored a goal, and the Czechs were up 1-0. However, Brazil didn't panic. A goal by Amarildo made it 1-1. In the 69th minute, a goal by Cito. And then in the 38th minute, Vava put in the net to clinch it, and Brazil defended their World Cup title without Pele. There were 6 people who scored 4 goals in the tournament. Nobody had more than 4 goals. 2 of them were Brazilian, Garrincha and Vava, each with 4. So the Brazilians looked fantastic and all that. The dream was alive. They were unstoppable. Could they have gone three in a row? We'll just have to wait and see. Well, Brazil looked for the three-peat, but unfortunately, Portugal and Hungary just had to ruin it for them by doing the hack-a-Pele method that got Pele to not be so effective, and Brazil faltered. Worst part for Brazil was that Portugal ended up getting third place in the tournament. But they still had a tournament in 1970 in Mexico. The first time North America would host the World Cup, and the first time that a continent not named Europe or South America would host it. So 16 teams would be there. Brazil knew they had to do something about it. After being taken out by the hack-a-Pele thing, they needed something. So they were put in Group 3 with England, Romania, and the Czechs, who they conquered in 1962 for the championship. Brazil marched through. They crushed the Czechs 4-1. They beat Brazil 1-0 despite Gordon Banks putting up the save of the century off of Pele, who thought he could head the ball downwards and into the net, but Banks used his arm to scoop it up and all that. And then Brazil had a tough time with Romania, but still won 3-2. England, thanks to their wins over Romania and the Czechs, got into the knockout stages too, into the quarterfinals. In the knockout stages, Brazil in the third quarterfinal on June 14th. And Guadalajara took care of Peru 4-2, who were kind of making a Cinderella run. Brazil would score the first two goals on a goal by Rivellino and Tostado. Gallardo made it 2-1 for Peru before Tostado scored again to make it 3-1. The man Tavilo Cubillas made it 3-2. He would make a bigger impact in 78. But anyway, Brazil scored a fourth on a goal by Jarcinho, who had scored in every group stage match, and now he scored in his fourth straight match. Brazil beat Peru. Next up for Brazil was a semi-final against the Uruguayans in Guadalajara, so they didn't have to move. And Uruguay took a 1-0 lead on a goal by Cubilla. This was the game when Pele made his famous feint and almost scored, but he missed the net. But it didn't matter. Claudaldo scored to make it 1-1 in the 44th minute. In the 76th minute, it was Jarcinho making it 2-1. Again scoring. That's his fifth straight match with a goal. And Rivellino made it 3-1. So Brazil won. Brazil would face Italy in the final, who actually came off a spirited semifinal, one of the best semifinals in history, as Italy and Germany had to go to extra time, and Italy won 4-3. Germany would win third place against Uruguay, but the final was huge for Brazil, in front of 107,000 fans at the Azteca. Pele would put up the first goal in the 18th minute. That would be the 100th goal in Brazilians' World Cup history. But Italy tied it up with a goal by Bonansenia, making it 1-1. However, Brazil would not be denied. A goal by Garrison in the 65th minute made it 2-1. Jarcinho scored again in the 71st minute, making it 3-1, which meant he scored in every group stage and knockout game. 6 in all. Nice job. And then came the famous team goal, in which almost every Brazilian touched the ball. And Pele made that spirited pass to Carlos Alberto on the right-hand side, and Alberto slammed the ball into the net. And Brazil won 4-1, claiming their third title. In fact, they would claim the Jules Rimet trophy for keeps. What happened was that if any nation won that small trophy 3 times, and it's not the World Cup trophy it was a smaller trophy than the globe with the hands reaching out for it that everyone wants to go for. It was a different trophy. Brazil took permanent ownership because it was their third title. Unfortunately for Brazil, in 1983, it was pilfered and melted down, and no one knows what happened to it. Jarcinho's 7 goals in the tournament was only second to Gerd Müller, who put up 10. But still, scoring a goal in every match, not even Pele could do that. So Brazil looked pretty good. and a dynasty happened, even though Pele would retire from international football. So Brazil thought they were kings. They won 3 titles. They won the old Jules Rimet trophy, and then they made a new World Cup trophy. And Brazil was trying to pursue that trophy. Unfortunately for Brazil, it didn't happen. 74, they lost to Poland, which was a shocker. They lost, yeah, in the third place game. And then 78, they were looking good. They could have got to the final in 78. But Argentina beat Peru 6-0, which was controversial because Peru may have tanked for Argentina because Argentina may have unfroze some money for Peruvians and grain as well. Brazil would be consigned to the third place game against Italy, and I think they lost that game. Can't remember. Doesn't matter. In 82, they seemed to have a very good, strong, talented team, but Italy beat them in the last game of the second round group stages, thanks to Pello Rossi's hat trick after being suspended for 2 years. Brazil would be really pissed off at themselves. In the meantime, 86, they looked good too, but France took them out in the quarterfinals on penalty kicks. 1990, Brazil was taken out in the first knockout game by Argentina 1-0, and people thought that the Brazilians were poisoned. Sometimes it's sour grapes, but actually it has happened. And then came 1994. Brazil was looking to win their first title in years. They had a decent team and all that. They were headed to the United States. A lot of people were like, the Americans are hosting a World Cup? How? And why? It's all about the money. So Brazil went to a tournament with 24 teams instead of 16 as they had won every time. Brazil were put in Group B with Sweden, Russia, and Cameroon. Needless to say, Brazil did well in the group stages. 2 wins and a tie. So Brazil and Sweden qualified out of the group. Russia did not have enough fortitude to get in as one of the third place teams. They only had 3 points, whereas Argentina, Belgium, US, and Italy all had more points for the third place teams. So Brazil would be going to Stanford Stadium to face the Americans on the 4th of July. And people were like, that's crazy. Well, yep, the Americans were trying to hold Brazil downwards and play key defense. But in the end, Brazil scored a goal by Bebeto in the 72nd minute. The worst part for Brazil was that Leonardo had done an illegal elbow on Tab Ramos, or I can't remember who the American player was. So he was basically booted for the rest of the tournament and given a lengthy suspension by FIFA. In the quarterfinals on July 9th in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl, they would take on Holland. It was a key game. It was a big game. Romario and Bebeto made it 2-0 Brazil, and it looked like Brazil was going to coast. However, goals by Dennis Bergkamp and Aaron Winter made it 2-2. Holland was coming back. Brazil needed something, and they got it on a Branco Thunderbolt. And the Brazilians beat the Dutch 3-2 in a classic quarterfinal, making it to the semis. The semis, they would be in the second semifinal. After Italy beat Bulgaria, Brazil would take on Sweden, the team that they tied 1-1 with in the group stages. This time in Pasadena, in front of 91,000 fans, the Brazilians won a goal by Romario. The Swedes were pretty good, making a Cinderella run to the third place game. Sweden would get third place by crushing Bulgaria in the fine powder 4-0. But they missed out on the big game. July 17th at 3:30 Eastern Time, Brazil and Italy would face each other off. Unfortunately, Brazil and Italy both were past with us. Well, Brazil did well, but Italy were minutes away from being eliminated after trailing Nigeria in the group stages, but they pulled it off and then pulled off some miracles in the knockout stages. Brazil and Italy were playing too conservatively. Penalties were back in for the first time in the World Cup final. Italy went first, and Franco Baresi, the strong defender, missed. Good news for Italy was that Marcio Santos missed for Brazil. Second kick, Albertini, goal for Italy. Brazil had Romario, scored 1-1. Ivani scored to make it 2-1 Italy, and then Branco made it 2-2. Massaro came to the spot and missed his kick. Then Caffarel saved it. And then Dunga made it 3-2. It was now down to Roberto Baggio, the guy who saved Italy with his goals throughout the tournament. But unfortunately, he placed it over the bar, not even close. And Brazil won the World Cup. Romario scored 5 goals in that tournament, but he missed out on the Golden Boot by 1 over Stoichkov of Bulgaria and Zelenko of Russia. However, Mario was named the MVP or the Golden Ball winner, with Brazil also taking the Fair Play and Entertaining Team trophies. Putting up 4 guys in the All-Star squad, Jorginho and Marcio Santos defending, Dunga in midfield, and Romario forwards. So yeah, they did all that. It was a great legacy and all of that. Brazil actually scored 11 goals in 7 games, which was the lowest average goals per game for any World Cup side, which is funny. But that record was actually broken by Spain in 2010 with them only scoring 8 goals. So anyway, Brazil did their jobs. All of that. So Brazil wins the 94 World Cup. That's their 4th title. You'd be thinking, well, surely that's it for Brazil. But no, it isn't. Well, the simple fact is that Brazil wasn't done yet. In 98, they had a decent chance to make it in. They actually got all the way to the final, which was great. They had some players left over from the 94 squad, and then they had this Ronaldo guy. Not Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo with his power cut and all that. He was one of the best strikers around, and Brazil looked like they were going to be the heavy favorite in the final against France. Unfortunately, Ronaldo suffered a seizure, and even though he had a seizure, he played in the final, which actually was not the best move because he was like a zombie. And the worst part was people thought that Nike, Ronaldo's sponsor, had pressured Brazil to put him on the roster. It was like unbelievable. So anyway, on to 2002, the World Cup. First time that 2 nations would co-host the World Cup, Korea and Japan, which didn't really share a land border. Well, Japan is an island nation. So anyway, Japan and South Korea knew what to do to try to bring the World Cup to Asia for the first time. And it was huge and all that. So anyway, this was shocking and all that. So anyway, the draw was made and Brazil was put in Group C with Turkey, Costa Rica, and China. Brazil will coast, scoring 11 goals in the 3 group stages, which actually tied them with the 94 squad for goals, but that was throughout the whole tournament. So Brazil did their job. Well, they beat Turkey 2-1, despite the fact that one of the Brazilians, I can't remember who was the guy who feigned it, and all that. Well, anyway, yeah, the Turkish player Hakan Sass was unfairly red carded for throwing the ball at a Brazilian, and the Brazilian, I would say Romario, I don't know. I think it was Romario who faked getting hit in the head with the soccer ball, even though that the ball was lightly thrown in and hit his leg. The Turkish player got a red card. However, FIFA fined the Brazilian $15,000 for his play acting. Brazil crushed China, the debutants, 4-0, and crushed Costa Rica 5-2. It's weird how China gave up fewer goals than Costa Rica. Turkey on goal differential, well, thanks to Brazil, Turkey got into the knockout stage just 2. So that's what happened. In the round of 16, Brazil had to wait till near the end of the rope for the round of 16, June 17th, in Kobe against Belgium, who made a superior run, but these were not the Belgians of 86 or 94. Brazil wins 2-0 on goals by Rivaldo and Ronaldo. So the Brazilians look very good indeed. In the quarterfinals, Brazil would take on their old mates England. The first quarterfinal, June 21st. It's strange how Brazil had played in the first quarterfinal and then they only had like a few days to recover. In Shizuoka, 47,000 fans came in and saw England score on a goal by wonder kid Michael Owen. And English fans, like myself, were like, wow, England could actually beat Brazil. Brazil, strangely, wearing blue for the first time. Usually they wore yellow, but anyway, Brazil wore their blue. Rivaldo scored late in injury time, first half injury time to make it 1-1. And then in the second half, Ronaldinho had a free kick, and it looked like England was going to stop them dead in their tracks. Who scores from a free kick other than Roberto Carlos? But it wasn't him, it was Ronaldinho taking the free kick. And unfortunately for David Seaman and all of England, the ball sailed left, Seaman flailed at it, and it went over his head into the net, and Brazil beat England 2-1. Poor David Seaman, he would really get chastised for his costly mistake and all that. But I think Brazil might have won as is. So anyway, it wasn't that good. Brazil in the semifinals would take on their old Group C rivals Turkey in the second semifinal. After Germany beat South Korea the day before, Brazil at Saitama Stadium would take on Turkey and win 1-0 on a goal by Ronaldo. No play acting, no stupidity by both teams. Turkey was assigned to the third place game, which they shockingly beat Korea 3-2. In fact, Hakan Şükür scored in 11 seconds in that third place game in Korea. And the fans were not too pleased. Turkey would not go on to win third place. And in the final, Germany awaited. Oliver Kahn was the man in that looked pretty good and seemingly was unbeatable. Brazil had Ronaldo, but how would Ronaldo do in this final compared to 98? Well, I think he did pretty well. Poor Oliver Kahn, he looked so good, and then he spilled a rebound in the 67th minute, which Ronaldo pounced on to make it 1-0. And then he scored a second goal in the 79th minute, making it 2-0. So Brazil cemented their status as being the most successful national team ever with that 2-0 win. Ronaldo scored 8 goals, winning the Golden Boot for the goal scorer. Rivaldo tied for second with 5 goals with Miro Klose of Germany. So it all worked out. Brazil did well. Ronaldo the Golden Boot. Oliver Kahn still won the MVP award, despite the fact of his finals performance. Brazil would put up 4 teams in the All-Star team with Roberto Carlos, Rivaldo, Ronaldo, and Ronaldinho. So Brazil looked very happy, and they thought, game, set, match. We're going to win another World Cup after 2002. Well, hate to say this, but it didn't happen. So after 2002, they went to 2006. They would take on the French in the quarterfinals. But for some strange reason, they had a good left back who actually had to tie his shoe, and then France pounced on the goal, making it 1-0. So Brazil fumbled. Roberto Carlos fumbled. And the Brazilians went out in the quarterfinals. In 2010, Brazil, I can't remember how they did or who they lost to. Because, for some strange reason, that result has gotten me tongue-tied. Who did they lose to? I mean, I know I should be more prepared, but I just want to see how Brazil did. Because I can't remember how Brazil did in the World Cup. They won their group. Oh, Holland took them out in the quarters 2-1. So another quarterfinals loss for the Brazilians. And then in 2014, guess what? Brazil was high on life. They were the host nation. They were expected to win the tournament. And they got through. They had Neymar. They had a good young team that looked pretty good. They took care of a pair of South American rivals to get to the semifinals against Germany. Unfortunately, Brazil didn't have Neymar because he got kneed in the back by a Colombian player, which was kind of cheap and all of that. They got to the semifinal against Germany in front of over 50,000 fans, and then the floodgates opened. For some strange reason, Brazil had basically terrible defense, and Germany ran all over them. That was the game where Miro Klose broke the record for most goals by one player in World Cup history in a career, breaking Ronaldo's record. The worst part for Brazil is they lost. Okay, yeah, but how they lost was huge. 7-1. Can you imagine a team scoring 7 goals in a World Cup game? It's been done before, mostly against minnows, but Brazil ain't no minnows. Brazil just choked it. The worst part for Brazil is they didn't even get third place. They lost to the Dutch 3-0. As the Dutch got them again after what they did in 2014. Brazil gave up the most goals in one World Cup in their history, 14. It was shocking. Brazil didn't even get third place. The final saw Germany beat Argentina on a late goal, a very late goal. His name escapes me. But it doesn't matter. Brazil suffered. And in 2018, they looked decent, but then Neymar and his team choked in the quarterfinals. So Brazil did it again. They faltered again. Couldn't get to the Final Four. That was not good. I'm Jeff Diamond. Thanks for watching. See you later.